Welcome to It Happened in Grand Prairie, our special taping for our September the 2nd, 1997, and this is our history tape number 314. We're very excited to bring to you people that are contributing to the history of Grand Prairie, and we have a very special young man with us today. It's my pleasure to welcome to you and the viewing audience, Mr. John McGinnis. Welcome, John, to the set.
It's good to be here. Thank
Yes, we're excited about having you on the show today because you're an important entity to a brand new section of Grand Prairie, to many in Grand Prairie that have been here for 50 plus years, and we're just so glad to have you on the set.
Well, I'm happy to be here.
Yes. First of all, we'd like for you to look out into your camera and tell us a little bit about the beginnings of John McGinnis. We want to get your genealogy and a little basics about you before we begin our in-depth interview.
Well, you started out by calling me a young man, and that's nice to hear. I have my family came from North Carolina, and of Scottish and Irish descent, of course, and you can tell that by my name. We lived in North Carolina. I was born in California when my father was in the military in World War II. And we subsequently have lived in Tennessee and moved to Oklahoma. My father was a physician and didn't start practicing medicine until late in life, actually, and we lived in Oklahoma. I was raised there, finished college at Oklahoma City University, and subsequently went into the military myself for a few years during the Vietnam era. And after that, I had learned something in the Army that I could make money with, so I had a position, a job of my own, a career of my own, a business that I created, and we lived in Illinois, my wife and I, raised two sons who were born there. In 1981, I joined Southwestern Bell Telephone Company in Houston, and worked there for a while and was transferred here by the telephone company in 1984. And spent some months living in an apartment by myself in North Dallas while my family was attempting to finish school in the Houston area. And while I was here, I took the opportunity to look for a place to permanently live. And of course, as the real estate folks would say, it's always location, location, location. I found South Grand Prairie and moved into a new home and went to work every day to downtown Dallas. So I've been living here since 1984.
All right, now let's get on the right track and revert back to your parents. I'd like both of their names, if you please.
My father was John Robert McInnes, physician who passed away 3 years ago at a very old age. He was 87 years old. My mother was Esther Alice Hurley, and she also passed away this year in January. And after a long and very, very fruitful life, and they're both buried in Oklahoma City, and I have a brother in Oklahoma and two sisters up there.
All right, would you like to name drop them and put them in?
Charles McInnes is my brother who lives in Sapulpa, and Marilyn Brawley lives in Woodward, and Nancy Sloan lives in Newcastle, Oklahoma.
All right. We're going to get on up a little farther now. And born in California, but started to school where?
Well, we moved from California to North Carolina in the dead of winter in 1946, and that was quite a trip. I imagine. I don't remember much about it, but we lived in North Carolina for several years, and I started my elementary school there, and that was before they had kindergarten. I started in a school that was 1st through 12th grade in one big building.
Yes.
And spent 2 years there, then to Chapel Hill, North Carolina for 3 more years when my father was in pre-med training. Then to Memphis, Tennessee for 3 years, and he was in medical school there. And then to Oklahoma City in 1956.
All right, and you graduated from Oklahoma City from high school?
Yes, Grant High School, U.S. Grant High School.
And now, Mr. McGinnis, let's revert back to elementary school. When you started to school in North Carolina, what was it like? Did you have favorite teachers, someone that was very important to your life you'd like to remember?
Well, I remember my first grade teacher as if I were in her classroom yesterday. Her name was Mrs. Sinclair. She was the wife of the principal of the school. As I said, it was a grades 1 through 12 school, so the principal had a lot of authority in the town, a very small town, very rural. She was a very stern but very loving woman, and as a first grader, it was a shock and a surprise to be away from home and be into this environment. We had about 45 kids in her class.
Yes.
And shortly after that, they broke that class up. This is what we're still doing today in the
Yes.
90s, of course, breaking classes up shortly after school starts. And I then had a Mrs. Spring, and we met on the stage of the auditorium. That's where our classroom was, the stage of the auditorium. It was an interesting time in the early 50s doing that. But probably the most influential teacher that I had was a man in high school by the name of Calvin Ryson, and he was a math teacher.
All right, and this was in Oklahoma
This was
City?
in Oklahoma.
Okay.
And I remember I had 2 math courses under him, and he was probably the most patient teacher that I'd ever had. He needed to have the patience of Job to do what he was doing, but he was teaching algebra and geometry, advanced math in high school, and I learned an awful lot from him. And I still use math a lot today, and it impresses me to know that at my age I'm using math that I learned from Calvin Ryson, who I don't know whether he's still living, but I believe probably he's not, because he was in his late 40s even that time, and it's been a while.
All right, so you came from North Carolina to several schools since your dad moved
Yes.
around a lot. Of all the schools that you attended, of course, I guess your high school experience there in Oklahoma City, did you spend the entire time there?
Yes, I did. Grant High School at that time was a 6th grade school, 7 through 12.
Yes.
So I entered as a 7th grader, and in amongst seniors, juniors, sophomores, and so forth, and I immediately got involved in things that most junior high age students don't get involved in, and with respect to their school activities. I was there when the football team was winning in the 7th and 8th grade, and the band was playing, and I saw the plays, and I was involved, and it was a great experience. Today we have much different arrangements, and sometimes kids at the age of 13 and 14 don't get to intermingle with older students
Yes.
and be involved in the things they do. So I had a great experience there. It was a good school. It was the time when there were a lot of ducktail haircuts and leather jackets, and I was probably right in the middle of that, but it was great fun, and I think I learned a lot at that school.
Oh, that is wonderful. And then from high school, where?
I went to Oklahoma City University.
Okay.
I traveled all the way 13 miles across town away from home and started studying there, and I was a biology major and spent 4 years, almost spent 5 years, but I managed to finish in 4 and get my degree and in biology. Then I went to graduate school for 2 years, Oklahoma University, expanding my experience in biology and learning more. And that was the time when the Vietnam War was heating up.
All right.
So the real incentive in college then was to get that deferment.
Yes.
So stay in school as long as you can, get a deferment. And I probably had more educated students in college and university around this country in the mid-60s than any other time in history, simply because we were really trying to keep from going to Vietnam. But
Yes.
in the end, I went and I finished 2 years at Oklahoma University, spent a year teaching in a private school.
All right. Was
And
that
then
in Oklahoma City?
It was in Oklahoma City.
All righty.
And I learned a lot about teaching in that year. I had 6 different classes. I had 5 preparations every night. And I was teaching students things that I had not seen since high school. And I was relearning geometry and relearning some of the math and science that I had not really worked with very much. And spent a year doing that. And eventually went ahead and joined the Army. I saw that clearly I needed to go ahead and get that done because of my age. So I signed up, joined the Army, spent 2.5 years, never got shipped overseas.
Where did you train?
I trained at Fort Polk, Louisiana.
Oh my, in
Didn't
the hot
everybody?
country.
Yeah, it was an experience. And then I spent 6 months at Fort Sam Houston, Texas, San Antonio, got my first taste of living in Texas, thoroughly enjoyed it down there. Got trained as an electroencephalograph technologist,
Oh, my.
EEG, and spent the rest of my tour doing EEGs in hospitals. And that led me really to a career. I was able to take what I learned in the military plus my background in science and math and so forth and build a business. And my wife and I, at the time, we had no children and we were looking for a new life, so we moved to Illinois and helped a neurologist in a hospital in Carbondale, Illinois, set up a neurology clinic with EEG, and I work with medical school there, teaching medical students about the electroencephalography, and had my own business. I was doing those tests around the several counties nearby, serving hospitals, and really had a great time. I had 2 children at that time.
All right, we're going to have to back up, and we're going to have to meet your wife. We do not have her even
Kathy
woven into this. Now, Miss Kathy, where did you meet Miss Kathy?
Kathy and I met in college. She is
right.
the typical story of meet somebody in college, and she was the freshman queen at Oklahoma City University, and she's going to just love hearing this on the television, but she was the freshman queen when I was a junior.
Oh, yes.
And we met, and she was in a sorority, and I was in a fraternity, and of course you get to meet, intermingle that way.
Yes.
So we dated for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years. She can tell you exactly the days.
I imagine.
And probably everywhere we went on a date, too. And we were married in 1968, and with a little math, it will show that we're approaching our 30th year.
Yes.
And we've had great fun together.
Now name the kids.
Mike and David. Michael is 24.
And where is Michael?
He is, now is that right, 24? He will be 24 next year in April.
All right.
He is in medical school,
All right.
University of Texas, Houston. Married and living down there and doing very well, doing famously well.
And you would name his wife?
And her name is Christy.
All right.
And they met in junior high in the 8th grade and dated all the way from there
To medical school.
through college.
Oh, that's great.
They graduated in 2 different places. He was at SMU, she was at UTA. They dated that entire time, and immediately after college graduation got married and moved away. And they're doing famously
Abandoned
well.
you or something.
Left us, just
Yes.
abandoned us.
Yes.
But he's a very fine young man, and he's going to do quite well, and she's an excellent teacher, and they're living in Houston and doing very well.
All right, your other son.
My other son is David. David will be 21 in October. He is attending Oklahoma Christian University and studying the ministry.
I see.
And he will be a youth minister. He will be an excellent youth minister. He has learned very much about the world of work this summer. He's worked very hard on his time off from school, and trying to learn more about the ministry. He's helped with a church group, and he's also made plenty of money, and that's what all dads like to see.
Oh, dads
right?
like that. That gets that way through school,
Absolutely.
right? Okay.
It
Now we have you married and the kids grown, but now let's talk about when you moved to Grand Prairie, Texas.
1984, company transferred me.
And that's the telephone.
Southwestern Bell, right. And
Right.
I've been up here working with Southwestern Bell ever since. I came and moved into some regulatory work with the company, and moved to South Grand Prairie down near the edge of civilization, and it still is.
Yes, it still is.
People may think they live in a huge metroplex, but there are places where you can just look over the fence and you see the woods, and that's
Yes.
the kind of place I like to live. It was a nice location.
But it's
moved
in Tarrant County.
It's in Tarrant County, and that's the interesting thing that sort of leads to the next part of my life. Is,
Yes.
I moved there because it was a nice location. The house was available. Everything seemed to click. It turns out that because you live in Tarrant County, even though it's Grand Prairie, you're in the Arlington School District.
Yes.
And at that time, my children started school at Foster Elementary, which was a good distance from where we lived.
Yes.
And then from that, because of the huge growth down there, new schools popped up all along. And Mike and David both went to Fitzgerald. And from there, I'm trying to recapture all this. I think Mike went directly to Hutchinson Junior High, and then to Sam Houston. David, on the other hand, went to Starrett and to ultimately to Bowie.
To Bowie.
So he was at Hutchinson for just 2 years, and then went to Bowie as the first 9th grade class that started there and graduated from there. So they went to 2 different high schools.
Yes.
So for a time, my wife and I
That
were
was
running.
interesting. You were
Well,
in
it was.
all of the PTAs
we
in
had,
the
We had
world.
to be members of everything.
Yes.
And it was fun, though.
Yes. And what stemmed your interest in the school board situation?
Well, to be absolutely candid, I think most school board candidates run because they are upset about something. There are very few people who will take the time and energy to do this without having something they want to accomplish. And that's true with me. And I was concerned about the facilities growth and development and the use of bond money. And some friends of mine suggested that I might consider running. And I, in a momentary lapse, I guess, went ahead and ran and got elected the first year. And I've been on the board ever since. And I think that the truth in Texas is that while many people run for the school board because they are upset or because they're angry or because they have a mission to accomplish something for the schools, they get over that very quickly. They get their mission accomplished and become very capable leaders.
Yes.
And they learn what it is to be a trustee in a public school in Texas. And it's a little unique. It's different than other states. We must try very hard to do what we can do with a lot of rules from the state of Texas.
That is true.
We are not terribly free to do some of the things that we would like to do, but we do what we can do.
Local control has slowly slipped away.
It is, and I think one of the missions that we all have is to retain as much local control as we have, because I think those of us in the community do understand better what our students, our children, our families need, our taxpayers want, than can be determined in a state as big as Texas. If you were in a tiny little state, it would be different. But I really believe that the legislature and others in other parts of the state really can't say as much about what we need as we can say about what we need. And for that reason, I think one of the missions I'm on is to help retain local control so that we can make decisions for our kids.
Well, it's very exciting knowing that you live in Grand Prairie, Texas, and yet your children have gone to the Arlington school system, and you in turn have developed that interest and served on their board. How many years now?
This is the start of my 10th year.
The 10th year.
My 4th term. I just was reelected last
Is your
spring.
district split by 360, that on one part of your constituency lives on the other side?
We do not have
A single-member
single-member districts. We are open, and so I represent
all of Arlington.
That's right. 55, almost 55,000 students this year, and all of the other trustees are in the same situation. They are equally affiliated with schools all over the city. I have as much interest and concern about schools in other parts of Arlington and in Dalworthington Gardens and Pantego as I do anywhere. But I think that the slight difference that occurs is I'm the first person elected from Grand Prairie to serve.
That's true.
And there's a tendency for the Arlington School District, of which clearly I'm a part, to refer to itself as Arlington. And I must continue to remind them that
you're the Grand Prairie part.
We've got a lot of kids from Grand Prairie, a lot of tax base in Grand Prairie. We have Dalworthington Gardens in Pantego.
Yes.
And part of Arlington is in the Mansfield District. So we have a lot of odd-shaped boundaries.
Yes.
I think we all need to keep in mind that we are broader and cover more territory than maybe the limiting words sometimes say.
Does Kathy work outside the home?
She is a school teacher. She teaches Spanish at Martin High School.
Isn't that wonderful?
And she's been there. She was teaching before I got on the school board, obviously, because the laws would prevent my hiring her if I was already on the school board.
I see.
And but she was there first. So, of course, we have this keen interest. Now, back to high school, Mike is in Sam Houston, David's at Bowie, she's teaching at Martin.
Yes,
That
is a split, yeah.
So we've got football games on Friday nights, band concerts, PTAs and such that we've been involved in over the years.
Yes, very wonderful. And stemming from your school board tenure, of course, you have been elected to represent the district and the region at the TASB level, and that is the Texas State School Boards Association.
That's right.
What are you doing in that now?
I'm currently the Secretary-Treasurer of Texas Association of School Boards, and hopefully this fall I've been nominated to be a Vice President, and so with good fortune I'll be elected to the Vice President's role in that organization this fall. I have been involved there for approximately 5 years, and in that capacity I've been able to help shape positions and policies and legislative directions, and I've helped to grow this organization. TASB is a service organization for the school districts in Texas. We provide a lot of resources on budgeting and on policy and risk management and leadership training, conventions whereby school board members and administrators can get continuing credit and learn a lot about what's going on in the rest of the state. Texas is so big, you really need a strong association.
Yes.
And ours is clearly one of the preeminent associations in the United States. My role as an officer allows me to also communicate nationally. And I've been to a number of national conferences where I'm able to visit with people on a broader scale. But I've also been fortunately chosen to be the chair of the Texas Learning Technology Group, TLTG.
Oh, how great.
Texas Learning Technology Group is a subsidiary of TASB, but what it does is manufacture curriculum software, CD-ROM, interactive video disc, very high-tech curriculum that has been driven toward science primarily in the past, but now bilingual training in the sciences through this software. We're very proud of some of the products that we've produced, and that's another voluntary position that I'm involved in.
Well, I've enjoyed watching you go through the chairs because I was a delegate from the Delegate Assembly for about 18 years for the Dallas County School Board. And then when I had to give up my position on the Dallas County School Board, I have missed being a delegate. I did get to serve as your state parliamentarian for a couple of 3 or maybe 4 years. And I know that you all have great things coming about, that you all are able to have all of your workshops, and you teach the young school board members that have never used those facilities and the things that go on there, that you really do help the delegates.
We do try, and I think that the proof is in the pudding when you have trustees from around the state who can hearken back to when they learned how to lead, manage, how to have a vision for their own district. They take back what we try to give them to their home districts and recognize that, of course, there are 1,040 districts in Texas, an extraordinary number. Hawaii has 1 school district, Texas 1,040, ranging in size from Houston, which is the largest, to some that are so small, there are very few number of students.
Yes.
But if we can provide resources and training and skills to those individuals, then I think my role on a state level is very positive. Plus, I get to represent the feeling of the people in Arlington and Grand Prairie and Dalworthington Gardens and Pantego and take it to the state and say, here's what we see.
Yes.
I represent my constituency as well as the state. And it's important that the state association get the flavor of our kind of community as well as it does other kinds.
Well, I think it's wonderful that the city of Grand Prairie has a representative with the power to project to other school boards all over the state of Texas the knowledge that you have acquired over all of these years as a school board member and then as a member of the association. I think that's remarkable.
I'm pleased to do it. I think it's a good service, and I continue to do that until I run out of energy to do it, I guess.
Now, we've hit all the high spots as far as the school board is right now, but I'd like to know a little bit more about your job with Southwestern Bell.
Well, currently my role is to work with the city governments of Texas in the relationship we have with them, primarily the uses of rights-of-way. I'm a negotiator, and we talk with city councilmen and mayors and attorneys around the state to make sure that the relationship is what each party would like to see. So I'm on the road a lot, traveling and visiting all over the state. There are 3 of us who do that, and so I have virtually a third of the state of Texas. And that's entertaining work. It's a lot of fun. It can be challenging, but we try to maintain good relations with cities. I guess other than working with the telephone company and the school district and Texas Association of School Boards, I want to mention that one of my number 1 loves in my life, besides watching my kids grow up and move out of the house, which is something every parent wants,
that's great,
is I have been involved with Boy Scouts for about 10 years.
Great.
And I am currently district chairman in Arlington and also a scoutmaster. And I get I think as much reward out of doing that as anything else, because I get to see these young guys come in at the age of 11 and 12 and mature and learn to lead and learn to control their environment and learn to be diplomatic and learn to be real models of what we need in our society and grow on to become Eagle Scouts in some cases. And to go to college and come back and say, you know, I'm a leader not only in my high school, but in my college, my university. As a result, hopefully, a little bit of scouting. And I thoroughly enjoy that and spend a lot of time with it, as my wife will testify, probably far more than I should. But it is something I've enjoyed doing, and I really hope to continue that well past my retirement and into my service on school boards.
And with Southwestern Bell, and we have about 2 minutes left on this interview. I'd like for you to say anything you would like to the young people in our viewing audience, how important it is to prepare themselves and to follow the rules.
The thing that's most important in our culture today and in our country today, I believe, is that if you are not ready to enter a very rapidly changing workplace, you are going to be left behind, not just by the students and your friends in your neighborhood, but by students who are growing up in other countries. With the end of the Soviet Union and the change in our political climate, nations all over the world are now saying, I want a piece of the American dream, and I want to achieve what Americans can achieve. And they come to the marketplace being able to speak their language and English. They come to the marketplace hungry for success and willing to work hard for it, very hard for it. Not 40 hours a week, not 50 hours a week, but 80 and 90 hours a week. They come eager to learn, and the most important thing our students in America today need to do is to get an affinity for learning, really learn how to learn how to be able to change, because when you go into the marketplace and go start work after college or after high school, there'll be highly technical careers that are waiting for you, just begging for you. But you've got to be able to move from one career to the other, to another, to another. All of us change jobs, and I've been through 2 or 3 changes in my life, but in this day and age, you'll go through 7, 8, maybe 10 changes. Be ready to learn new things. Be ready to learn to communicate. And be ready to be a believer in your own capabilities and learn how to succeed, and you'll make it very big.
That's wonderful. I want to thank you so very much for taking the time, Mr. John McGinnis.
Thank you.
It has been a delight to have you with. I'm so glad you're a Grand Prairian, because you're a grand young man to be able to go out over the state in all the different avenues you do.
That's right.
And to preach the youth gospel to them about what it takes to be successful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for being with us today. And this is Ruthie Jackson reminding you that history is as we live and do. Thank you.
Good.